Fandom's log.
Hello.
Hello. Hello.
So, as you may know from the title of this video, we are asking a very interesting question. Is fandom toxic?
Yes. Or is it useful? Is it a benefit?
Yeah. So, based on some of the things that we've seen going on in the nerd sphere at the moment, let's cite something like the Last Jedi as a good example. You've got halfway down the middle, literally halfway down the middle, you've got people saying Last Jedi was amazing or Last Jedi is horrible, and you've got people on both sides being vitriolic, hating each other and not having a discussion.
And the question is, what impact does this have on the product? What does this have on the interpretation of the media as well? So is it useful to the legacy of an idea?
So I'm going to start it off. It can be 50-50. I know that sounds like a cop-out.
That's kind of like a conclusion.
Yeah,
a conclusion.
But like, just based on what I've seen, fandom is inherently good because you've got people joining together, sharing their love of something, and like, for example, the three of us, as a good example, we're all friends because we all love geeky stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. We all have different degrees to which we love the said things. Like, for example, I'm a massive Star Wars nut. You guys aren't so much. Whereas you're a massive fan, Dan, of something like Aliens.
Yep.
Me, not so much.
And
but there's that sliding scale, and you can always find fun in it.
Yeah. But why would you say it's good? What is it? What's your point about it? What is the benefit of?
Because look at it. If you're somebody who has spent most of their life being excluded because of the things that you love, if you look up online, you've got a whole community of people that join you and want to be a part of that world, and you can have an interesting discussion with. In theory, I'm saying that in theory because we'll get to a point later. And you've got people that will, for example, if you've got someone like Sherlock, you got Doctor Who, you got people to debate and theorize with, and that is where fandom is at its strongest. It's a sense of community and feeling.
Yeah. And how does that benefit the product? How does that benefit the thing that you're watching? Is it?
It builds excitement, I guess, in my opinion.
I would agree that it builds excitement. It builds love of whatever that product would be. But I don't agree that fandoms necessarily are a good thing. I think that they are inherently a very bad thing to an outsider of that fandom. If you are involved in that fandom, it's a wonderful, wonderful thing. But when you come into one of these things, it is very much a case of you don't know what you're talking about. Get out.
And it's once a product is released to the world, there's nothing but commentary that can happen, and said commentary can also warp not just the product as perceived, but the product from the filmmakers or the creator's perspective.
You can change your product in order to fit the fandom, but the fandom doesn't necessarily know what it wants. I feel like The Last Jedi is a perfect example of that.
Star Wars is a fantastic example, legacy-wise, because George Lucas is one of the most unfortunate filmmakers on earth.
Yeah,
he was not just only he had one of the largest fan bases to deal with. He was jaded by it, became cynical because of it, and because of that, we got inferior products as he was trying to recapture the magic.
Yeah, and he was trying to appease the fan base at the same time with the decisions that he made. And yes, you're right, the fan base did some good things with the original trilogy. It was the fan base that went, no, we're done, no more Jar Jar. No, that was a terrible, I think. And by the third film, he doesn't even say a line. He doesn't even have any lines. He's only in one.
But that also has its detriments as well.
Yeah.
So to kind of get this into a form of debate form, let's go back to the good. Let's focus on the good first, and kind of analyze a case study of what can be done to actually improve that product in popular culture.
Well, a good example of fandom being a force for good is actually something like Doctor Who and the MCU as we know and love it. because you've got these two properties that are very popular, and you got people discussing and theorizing and having genuine emotion and connection to it, and they all see different things, as we've just seen with if you've watched our top countdown, we all have very different things, but we all love the MCU. So that is where it is at its strongest. Something like Doctor Who, you have your own Doctor, and you love that Doctor. That is where fandom is strong, and you've got this discussion going out again. The problem, I think quite a lot of the problem with, I think it's going to be more of a debate like semantics, but part of the problem with fandom is people refusing to see something from another person's point of view. And it's like, for example, The Last Jedi. Let's look at The Last Jedi as a case study, and Star Wars in general as a case study. You've got the original trilogy people who say the prequels were shit or crap, and that George Lucas didn't know what he was doing. He was ruining their childhood, and then the moment JJ came over, they overcompensated for that. Then you got the people that were raised on the prequels that found the originals boring because they didn't have enough action, and then they've got these ones now saying, well, it's not like the Star Wars that I knew and loved. And then you got the people that are just refusing to budge on either side, and then you got the people like me who enjoy Star Wars as its whole. I acknowledge where there are stupid bits, but the problem is that we as a society take personally what we think is ours, and then when somebody changes that, they get very defensive over it.
It's this kind of, I feel what the debate we're having at the moment is a kind of what I like to think of as a religious identity. It's a form of religion I call fictionalism. It's not believing in a god per se, but reading texts, acknowledging texts as the stories that they are, whether they claim to be fictional or factual, and living life by their rules. There are some people that do it really well, and some people are evangelical and promote it for good or for evil, and some people that are consumed by its identity. The people that look and perceive art as the message it is and take on board the aspects of it into their life, that is a healthy way of dealing with fandom. However, when it comes to the other side, where a piece of art it becomes their whole identity, that's when it becomes a toxic form of fandom, because they don't acknowledge the product as a piece of art more than a part of themselves. So anyone that criticises the art criticises that person as a human being, and that's when it's toxic. Rick and Morty is a good example of.
Rick and Morty is a very good example. The whole. I love the show. I love the show to pieces, but its fandom are annoying. And I will say that if you go online and you actually look at any Rick and Morty articles, or even you go on Reddit and you look at Rick and Morty fan pages, they are annoying, and it's full. And I'm sorry if there's anybody listening here who is involved in those fandoms, but there are people on there, and I'm not saying it's everybody on there. There are people on there that if you come into Rick and Morty and you go, tell me what this is about, they'll immediately shoot you down, and they'll immediately go, no, go away, this isn't for you, because you don't know what it is. And it's those people inside the fandoms that give the fandoms a bad name, and I feel like that's where the toxicity comes from. When you don't know the product and you want to learn about the product, and they go, well, you don't know it, go away, this is for people that know and love it. And you're like, but I want to try and love it, and I want to try and get involved. Going with the Rick and Morty thing, the whole Szechuan sauce is the perfect example of when things go too far. It was a lovely little joke in Rick and Morty that became an actual thing, and McDonald's went, all right, we'll give you what you want, we'll do the Szechuan sauce for a little bit, and they did it for a little bit and a few selected things, but because it wasn't everywhere, because it wasn't a huge thing, everyone kicked off, and there were huge arguments, there were huge fights, and you look online, people being absolute arseholes.
It's the sense of entitlement that people seem to have.
People get that entitlement because they look at the thing, they're surrounded by other people who are also telling them that what they are reading and what they're watching is as amazing as they believe it is, and that's where their entitlement comes from.
It's
You're
part of
surrounding yourself with other people who think that you are just as entitled as they are.
Like the Last Jedi, the debate that they were having about that, there was all these theories coming out before it, and people were hyping themselves up for one thing, and then when Rian Johnson came out and he gave something completely different, admittedly some of it wasn't good, some of it was fantastic, they kicked up a fuss.
Yeah.
Because it's not the Star Wars that they knew.
And there were even people trying to get it removed from canon. And it's just stupid.
I mean,
and the idea of that's the thing that kind of gets me about the Star Wars thing. This is where when it consumes your identity is the issue I have, because it's not the case of because when it's a piece of art and you can perceive it as a product, that's when you can go, that one's not for me. That one's not for me. I didn't like that one, so I don't need to get that. For example, me, the Avengers, the MCU, I don't like Guardians of the Galaxy 2. Don't think it's a strong film, so I haven't bought it. That is how I. Yeah, that's how I tell them.
You are still a fan, and in some ways, you are still a member of the Avengers fandom.
Yeah,
you are still part of that. But just because you don't like one aspect of it doesn't mean you are any less of a fan than anybody who says they love all of it.
The problem is if you're saying everything is good and you don't acknowledge that there are some things that are problematic in these films, you're a sycophant. I'm sorry.
Exactly.
If you say, for example, like let's look at somebody that let's look at something like the MCU. If you don't acknowledge the fact that the MCU have a problem with their villains, you're selling yourself short, and you're selling the creators short, because the creators have acknowledged that they have issues with their thing. So
the recent form of the MCU is actually a very good example of how fandoms can influence a product as well. And there are other examples how it's they've ruined a product as well. But in the recent films, they have been listening to the audience, they have been hearing these complaints and these concerns, and they have been actively trying to rework it the way that the fans want it. I mean, Thor Ragnarok is an example of that, because they were because they realised that in the fans' eyes, Thor 2 is the one that is the lowest rated. Tried to work out why. Chris Hemsworth specifically wanted to know why, and he heard more louder speaking members of the fan community, ones which have the biggest influence, the ones that actually speak for more of the fan base than others, like Kevin Smith. And he was explaining what he didn't like about Thor, saying that, to paraphrase, that Thor should be the most metal of the characters. He is this Norse god, and that's what he should be portrayed as, this metal, fun, enthusiastic film. Then Ragnarok comes out, and look at how it was improved. Look at how it changed. And Chris Hemsworth directly points out that the reason why that changed to that influence is because he made sure it did. They listened to the audience, and that's a product that's not just made by a company. That's a product that was made by a community.
But that's when things work, when people actually listen and they go, right, okay, you had a problem with this. Then you listen to your fans and your fandom that love that thing. You go, right, okay, so you like this, but you didn't do this. I will do more on that, and I will work more on that, but we'll get rid of that because you didn't like that.
As a counterpoint to that, though, you've got something like the DCU, where it is incredibly reactionary because the fans aren't letting the directors have the creative vision. The thing that works with the MCU is the directors come in, they have their vision for what they want their film to be, and then it's successful. Taking on what some of the fans want and what they don't want. But at the end of the day, they're allowed to make their own vision. Problem with something like the DCU is someone like Zack Snyder has put in so much work into that series. And I know from some of the stuff that I've been hearing about what his version of Justice League was going to be, that's the version I wanted more than anything. Because it pays off some of the stuff that they were talking about in Batman v Superman. You don't get that because of the interference. Something like Suicide Squad is incredibly reactionary to something like Guardians of the Galaxy. And it's because of the fan vitriolic reaction to the DCU. And at the same time, hardcore fans of the MCU have been baiting that as well, because they're saying, oh, it's just the DCU. You're coming late to the party. You're catching up with Marvel. No, let's look at what was coming out at the start of when the MCU was there. You had the Dark Knight trilogy. Are you honestly telling me that Christopher Nolan should have given up his integrity as an artist to link the Dark Knight trilogy into the DCU? No.
It has no place in the DCU.
So the idea that, yes, admittedly the DCU is catching up, but you don't need to add fuel to the fire. Look at something like Man of Steel. I consider that to be a very good superhero film because it shows the origins of a superhero in a modern age. And the fact that they have collateral damage, I'm like, that is exactly what would happen. It's not this heroic thing anything like the MCU portrays it.
No,
and that is why that film works. And
so on the other side, though, I get the thing with you have to leave directors to their vision.
Yeah.
However, there is a limit to that.
Yeah.
Because when a product's made, yes, the artist needs to have respect. They need to respect the artist's vision. There is an element of control that they need to have over the product so that they can make the product. But there is a moment that once the audience is there, that's it. That product, I fully believe that product should stay the way it was upon release.
Yeah.
Because, for example, Spielberg is a good example of and Lucas, but Spielberg as a kind of tampering with his film post-release.
Yeah.
That kind of taints the point. The reason why people like it is for its positive and negative moments. And when you're going back into E.T. and remove the guns and add walkie-talkies, that's a form of tampering that kind of... It changes the narrative of your story. Yeah, it changes... It doesn't become the film it was.
Yeah. I think we're divulging onto another topic, but let's bringing it back to fandom. When you've got fans that are constantly pointing flaws in other people's fans, they therefore react. That's why we had something like, for example, that Facebook group that were thinking that Marvel and Disney had paid off the critics to make DC look bad. Anybody in their right mind knows that is stupid. But at the same time, when Marvel fans are saying, yeah, but it's the DCU, you're rubbish, that hurts someone's feeling. You may not think of it, but just because you're on the other side of a keyboard, you've got that anonymity. But the point I want to really make is, be a part of these fandoms, be a part of these discussions, but don't be a dick about it.
Love what you love, but don't ever tell anybody else that they shouldn't love something just because you do. And they shouldn't have their own opinions. That's the whole beauty of it. And the whole point of being a geek is to love what you love and not feel bad about it. And the second someone turns around and goes, you shouldn't like this thing, then that's going into the realms of we're geeks. That's what we do. We love things because we love them.
Art is not truth. Art can only be a simulation of truth. So you can't say anything is definitive. You believe something, you explain it, you interpret it, you debate about it, but you don't say anyone else is wrong. Because I like to know why people like things that I don't, because that provides an insight into something that I won't have seen before.
Like art is always subjective. For example, I saw stuff in Justice League that I completely love that I know Dan really doesn't like. And I know that if Sam were to watch it, he'd be like, well, this bit doesn't work and the plot falls apart. And I'm like, I completely understand that. The fact that you can have a conversation, like, for example, my best mate, Nathan, he loves Suicide Squad because it's got the Joker and he sees all this stuff. And I'm like, it wasn't for me, but I'm glad that you saw something in it.
That is beautiful about when you actually like something and when you're a fandom of something. It's the fact that you can turn around and you can acknowledge when something is amazing. You can acknowledge that something has flaws. You can acknowledge that same thing that you love and you're a fandom of, it still has its problems. And you need to be able to do that, unfortunately. Nothing is sacred. Nothing is perfect. Even Rick and Morty that I love to pieces, it's not perfect. It still has its problems. And I feel like when you are part of a fandom that turns around and just goes, there are no problems with this sort of thing, that's when your fandom becomes dangerous, because you need to acknowledge that things aren't perfect and you need to sort them out.
But at the same time, taking away somebody saying that they don't understand what their fandom is, asking somebody for their nerd cred, asking someone, just baiting other fandoms because their fandom isn't doing so well, is not helping the situation. What we need to be as a community, and this is just as a geeky community, as a nerdy community, is we need to be more inclusive. Because if you're a layman coming in, not knowing where everything is, what to do, what these things are, you want to be able to inclusive. That's why I had issues with some of Stephen Moffat's run on Doctor Who. It was very self-referential, so that to the point where if you were a layman coming in, you would have no idea what is going on.
That happened to me with Stephen Moffat's Doctor Who, because I missed good 2-3 series of it and then came back in and had no idea what was going on. And I don't think it was 3. I think it must have only been 2 series I missed. or maybe even 1.5. But no, I had no idea what was going on when it came back into it.
I think you want to talk.
I was going to say, like, I think the actual problem is the concept of fan.
Yeah.
Because the way the moment that people perceive themselves as a fan is the moment they start gamifying it. It's what rank are you? What level are you as a fan? I'm a level 3. I'm the nerd king. These are the issues, and I think we should like shed the term of fan and say I'm a voyeur. Voyeur sounds really poncy and hipster-like, but I mean, we don't. The idea of I watch, I've seen that, I like it, I'll watch more of it. But by saying you're a fan, immediately seems to militarize your beliefs.
Yeah.
And so, the best way to stop that, the best way to open up the community, is to say, I like Star Wars. Is to say, I like watching the Marvel films. I really enjoy them. I'm going to go watch more. It's like, but you say, I follow what they do. I'm interested in them. But if the moment you say, I'm a fan, are you a fan?
Yeah.
That's when the people say it. That's where it's either you think they're good or you think they're bad. And that's, we need to open up the spectrum.
Yeah. No, I do think as well, the main problem with fandoms is when they start pretending they know what they want.
Yeah.
And I'm sorry, I am involved in a couple of fandoms myself, and we've got like a few Reddit things. And the reality is you don't know what you want as a fan. When you don't know what you want until it comes out. And when it comes out, you go, oh yeah, that was good. Or, I would have preferred it to be a bit more like this. But you don't listen to your fans to tell you what they want because they don't know. Do what you're going to do because that's what they love, and then they will tell you whether or not it was appropriate. Fandom is a committee, and as we all know, a camel is a horse designed by a committee. Yeah. So you don't ever listen to your committee. Have your idea and then build on it with them, but don't ever just take that.
You wouldn't run anything by committee like a football team. You'd have the coach, and the coach would divert everything. So I don't see I'm getting a bit sidetracked again. I think that's why DCU doesn't work. Yeah. They don't have a Kevin Feige. They don't have a point guard. But
they're trying,
and that's why they, to a certain extent, Star Wars doesn't work at the moment as well. They don't have a George Lucas leading everything forward.
They technically do.
They on paper, but not really.
But yeah, you can't ask the followers. You can't ask the followers for directions.
No. Yeah,
because you'll just end up going around in circles.
Let's try and wrap this up because we're starting to get a little bit long. So, what are your final thoughts, Sam? What do you think we need to do? What are your closing thoughts? What needs to happen in terms of fandom?
In terms of fandom, it's the idea of I think my statement is to shed the term of fan, the idea, and create the concept of community.
Yeah.
Because the moment we don't need to create walls. We don't need to create factions, because that's not what this is about. As the executives of Marvel have said in the past, we don't want the DC films to fail, because as we've recorded, when one film fails, every film starts to fail. There is a significant dip. There's a significant dip in sales to all films when one bombs, regardless of what company they are from. And that is the only way you can really support or reject a product is through your wallet. Don't need to make this a partition thing, because then we'll get to where the American government is right now, where things go horribly wrong. Just, if you like something, go watch it. If you don't, then don't. And you can discuss and debate, but don't force anyone to, because that's not what art is. Art is about discussion.
I would agree with you there. I think the whole point of being a fan of something and being part of a fandom is to enjoy that product, what you love, with other people who love it just as much as you. You might not agree with them on everything, but that's just the nature of humanity. That's just who we are. We don't agree on everything. We all have our own opinions. We all see things in our own way, and that is beautiful and it's wonderful, and we should never take that away from ourselves. But in terms of fandom, be part of your fandoms, enjoy your fandoms, but don't don't disregard other fandoms, don't disregard other people just because they disagree with you. Everyone is entitled to their own opinions and their own beliefs, and allow them to do what they want. Allow yourselves to do what you want. Don't get involved. If something annoys you, just don't get involved.
Yeah.
If something is offended, you just don't acknowledge it. It's not for you. It's for somebody else who won't get offended by it. You know, just enjoy it. Just enjoy what you can in life, and
my closing thoughts are just have a discussion about it, but don't let. Be open to discuss. Be open to other people's point of view. Be inclusive of those people. Because you don't know who those people are. You're going to want to be a part of that community. You don't know what they're going to contribute. So let them be a part of it.
At the end of the day, everyone involved in a fandom is a geek, and we all need to stick together.
Yeah. And I think part of the problem is now geeks are feeling very entitled to the world that they are in.
Yeah.
They think, oh, we were there, we were the hipsters, we were there before it was cool. And now they're feeling like they are the elite. I think we need to take a step back before we become the bullies that we were being bullied by in the before all of these came through. So take stock of where we are at and enjoy your things, but don't be a knob. That is my...
Humility is the greatest gift you can ever give.
Yeah.
That's an excellent line to finish on.
I think that's where we're going to leave it. So type down in the comments down below what you think we need to do as a fandom. Do you agree with us? Are we completely wrong? But hey, let's have a discussion about it. So that's a bye from me.
A bye from me.
And a bye from me.
No, it's not. No, it's not.